Welcome to Helping Organisations Thrive. Today I have the pleasure of Andrew Green. Good morning to you, Andrew.
Morning, Julian. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And just to say to the audience that you are the CEO of Chichester College Group, which comprises of 7 colleges. That's quite a big group in the UK. And you've got 26 years of experience in education, leadership. But you also coach emerging leaders in that space as well. And I looked on your LinkedIn profile, and one of your sort of superpowers, or you believe in what superpowers people have, is kindness, and that can turn anyone's bad day into a good one. Which I'm sure we'll have a conversation about that. And we're going to be exploring the challenges of a CEO and how you navigate them, and how you bring your people with you in that context, and so people can sort of learn some lessons from you. But before we get into that, Andy, what do you love about what you do?
I think what I love about what I do is that I know that every day I come into work, I'm changing somebody's life through learning. I mean, that is our purpose as a Chichester College Group. That's our purpose, changing lives through learning. But I feel that that's why I get out of bed. That's what motivates me. That intrinsic motivation is to come and change lives. And there's no job satisfaction like seeing a young person come into the organisation shy, lacking in confidence, no qualifications, and then through the nurturing and coaching and everything that we do with those people, those young people, adults or apprenticeships, they turn out to be a very confident, skilled person, able to go on and get their dream job or their dream university place. It's what we do. We talk about creating awesome human beings. People don't have a career for life anymore, so we want to give our young people, our adults and apprenticeships, those flexible skills, those employability skills, which means they can go from employment to employment. So that's what motivates me, is making that difference to those people so that they can better their lives, so we can drive local economic prosperity and we can drive social cohesion. That's really important to me.
That sounds pretty satisfying as a purpose and a way of going to work every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got lots of friends that work in sales, and they say to me, "Oh, I met my sales target." And I said, "Well, I changed the lives of 25,000 learners this year." So it's definitely something that I love doing, and I wouldn't do anything different.
That's fantastic. And I had the privilege of going to your Star Awards last year and seeing all the students come through and been recognised for their achievements. And that's quite an impressive showcase. Obviously, that's only a glimmer of the people you're touching, but that's pretty satisfying as well, isn't it?
It is to hear those stories where they've come in, and our education ethos is built around driving up the confidence, self-esteem skills of our young people. Qualification is obviously important. It's important they get those qualifications to open doors or to get in front of people. But actually, what makes it more important, what is more important, is that building that confidence and that self-esteem of those adults, young people, apprenticeships. If you give that to somebody, then they can achieve anything. If you give them that self-belief they can achieve something, then they will go on and achieve something.
Fantastic. And just go into your role as a CEO, and when you first stepped into the role of the CEO at Chichester College Group, what was your biggest surprise in that role?
I think the biggest surprise is, well, was it a surprise? I think, as you mentioned earlier, Julian, we're 11 FE colleges. We're about the fourth largest country, 25,000 learners, 120 million turnover. We have a chain of childcare nurseries. We've got some commercial businesses as well. The scale is always quite interesting, working at this scale across such a large organisation. You can set a culture and you can lead by example and say, this is the culture we want in an organisation. This is how we want our people to behave. People are our most important asset. But actually getting that right out into the corners of the organisation, because a culture is the only culture an employee will experience is the culture that their line manager sets. So, it's not about having Stepford wives and getting everybody to act exactly the same, but it's getting everybody to believe in our core values and behave around our core values. And doing that at scale is quite challenging.
And I can imagine that. And obviously, I've worked with you as a group. And how do you take that, almost that group culture, but also there's this sort of local culture, and obviously there's a historical aspect to each of the colleges as you've sort of merged and sort of come together. How do you, I suppose, maintain that, that standards, values, sort of group wise, but also keep the localness as well, which is quite a challenge really with that sort of multi-site sort of education stuff.
Yeah, it's a really good question, Julian. I think we set our college group up to very much be about the local college. So it is Crawley College in Crawley, it's Hayward Heath, it's Brighton, it's Worthing College, etc., Chichester College, rather than having some sort of one group name for the colleges. Excuse me. And that was really about creating that local identity. We really believe our colleges are there as a local resource. Local people, staff have to feel affiliated to that local brand. So it was never going to be Chichester College Group in Crawley, Chichester College Group in Hayward Heath. That just wouldn't work. Other colleges group do that. That works for them. That's absolutely fine. But for us, it's really about creating that local brand, that local feeling of identity for our students, for our customers, and for our staff. And people really like that. And there are idiosyncrasies of each college group, of each college within the group. But obviously the culture, that distributed leadership, empowerment, working within a framework, all of those things is very much a group power in a sense. We talk about the power of the seven because obviously we have 7 construction departments. And now they all work together to share resources and to share expertise and to share ideas and innovation. And that's really powerful. But also then they're really localized, meeting their needs of their local employers and their local young people.
And how do you manage, I suppose, from your perspective as CEO, trying to sort of keep in touch with the sort of the colleges and people, that your time and sort of locations, because that must be quite challenging because there's 7 colleges, but there's more locations, isn't there? And I think that's, always when there's always multi-site, trying to fit your time. Yeah. So how do you sort of work that through in making sure you're in touch?
So the structure that we have is that there is a local principal in each of our colleges, on most of our sites. So I guess I was trying to use an analogy. It's a bit like, early in my career, I worked for Boots Chemist. So obviously I was assistant store manager for Boots Chemist, but there would be an area manager. And I guess in my role, it's a bit like being the area manager in a sense that I can, I go into the local colleges, but the leadership presence on those colleges is primarily the principal. Around those sites as much as possibly can. I don't have an office on every site because I don't think that's work wherever. I have one, and I have lots of different mechanisms how I keep in touch. I have a CEO, so I rock up in a room for an hour. Any staff can come along and ask me any question. I do a formalised walkabout with the principals twice a term. I just rock up and walk around. If I'm working at a particular site, I'll just walk around and say hi to staff, and they go, there's all sorts of different mechanisms in which I can stay in touch with the staff, as well as the principals and the vice principals on the.
No, obviously you work in the education sector, and every sector has its challenges, every sector has different ways of working, and that's why we have expertise within each sector. So what have you found in terms of your leadership approach to be the most effective way to inspire your team, to inspire those sort of principals within those colleges?
I think people work in education because they care, because it's a vocation, because they want to make a difference. And I think that's what we focus on. We focus around, making sure we're all behind that purpose, behind that mission, and we do things for the right. You would never hear me say, "Oh, we need to improve these standards. We need to do this because of Ofsted." It's about this college needs to be good enough to send your kids to. If the college is good enough to bring your kids to, or send your family to, then we're doing it for the right reasons. We're doing it for our customers. All of our customers who come, whether they're funded by the government or whatever it might be, absolutely deserve customer experience, and they should get that wherever they are and what course they're on, whether it's a day course or a 3-year degree course or a 2-year vocational course or an A-level course. They should get that outstanding customer experience. So it's really about inspiring our staff and enabling them, giving them the resources, the facilities, the reward, the recognition to be able to do that. Now that's challenging in a sector, an FE sector, that has been chronically underfunded for the last 30 years. And we are faced with a situation where school teachers are paid nearly 20% more than FE college teachers for teaching exactly the same subject to exactly the same students because of the way that the two systems are funded. Now that's fundamentally wrong. And our biggest challenge of this organisation is the retention and recruitment of good quality staff, because we can't pay as much as the school sector or the university sector. Now I spend a lot of time talking to ministers and lobbying MPs, etc., to try and get this changed. And we are starting to see some positive change, but we all know the government doesn't have a massive amount of money to play with, so it's not going to change overnight. But it is fundamentally unfair. So we have to then say, okay, well, we can't reward you in the same way that if you worked in a school, but actually here are the benefits of, that we here because you want to make a difference. So let's give you everything we can enable you to make that massive difference to our customers, our students.
I didn't realise there was such a discrepancy in salaries versus the schools and the colleges. Actually,
Yeah.
I didn't realise that. I sort of thought might be in universities might be slightly different, and that must be quite challenging for, I say, retention or just recruiting itself. But I suppose that's what goes back to how you keep people engaged, because we know that salary obviously is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's having things more than salary, and that's that. And then you've got a clear purpose of your organisation. How do you embed that within your team to sort of almost say the same thing or model that behaviour throughout the organisation?
Yeah, as you say, salary is only one tool that we have, etc. It's around making sure that we're doing other things to help staff. So we place a lot of emphasis on life-work balance. And I say it that way around on purpose, because it is about life-work balance, not work-life balance. We do a lot of stuff on well-being. We give our staff a wellness day each year. So that's a day where they can go and do whatever they want to feel well, whether that's walking the dog, going to the gym, or lying in bed all day. Or, some staff say, well, I don't tell my partner wellness day, so I can just go and have a day on my own, and, just to go to shopping or whatever it might be, or go away early. So we always try and tie it to a weekend or a holiday or whatever it is, so they can sort of get away slightly early. And staff really value that. There's a whole load of stuff we do around reward and recognition, long service lunches, long service awards. You came to the Stars Awards, you saw our staff stars. We have inspirational teacher, inspirational support teacher, international support member of staff on a termly basis, nominated by students. And we have a Chairs Award each year, nominated by staff. So there's lots of things that we do to recognise and reward those staff in the best possible way that we can, but looking after their well-being, trying to implement systems and processes that reduces their workload to enable them to really focus on that young person. And it's been challenging, Julian, because as the government have cut and cut and cut and cut, whichever government it is, and I am apolitical, I have to be, whichever government has cut the external services like mental health services and family centres, etc., that just falls back on education. And this is the same for school teachers and us in the FE sector. We are now not just teachers, we're social workers, we're mental health workers, we are housing officers, we're this, that, and the other, because all of that just falls back to us. And I'm not prepared to say, well, it's not our job. We will do whatever we can to help that young person out of apprenticeship so that we can actually access, they can get to a point where they can access education. Because actually, for some of them, the reason they're not engaged in education is because there's so much else going on in their life, and we teach everybody from foundation level, so learners with SEND, special education on one, right through to degree level. So we have a vast array of students across that 25,000 in age range. I think our oldest student this year was 89 doing GCSE physics. How amazing is that? Fantastic.
That is amazing.
And our youngest is, we do. I know. It's like, why are you doing this? Just for fun. I was like, fair enough. And then, and we have a small cohort of 14 to 16-year-olds who have been expelled from school, and then we pick them up here. This is a prime example of how we change their lives, because they come into us having not attended at school, being expelled from school. We put them in a vocational situation where they might be doing brickwork or hairdressing or beauty, and they suddenly feel good about themselves because they can be successful. They suddenly feel good about themselves, and self-esteem and confidence goes up. and then they go, oh, I can sit in a maths lesson, I can sit in anything, because they feel better about themselves.
That's fantastic, and I love the fact that you've got this holistic approach. And I agree with you. You know, you're not just teaching people about maths or bricklaying or whatever it may be. It's supporting them in the holistic aspect of their lives. And it's a shame that obviously the cuts in the government put the more weight on you and a burden, but obviously you're taking that weight. And with that, I suppose it's becoming that whole piece on resilience. I've got a passion about building resilience in individuals and in teams. How do you, as a CEO, sort of keep that resilience? Because it can be quite tough, you know, whether it's cuts in funding or challenges in results or, I don't know, other issues you may have. How do you keep going, and how do you sort of look after your well-being and keep resilient? But also, what do you do for your staff and your sort of leadership team as well?
Really important, Julian. I think, you know, there's a put on your oxygen mask first before you help others, because if you don't look after, you fit position to help others, and, you know, as a CEO and as a leadership team, we need to be there for our teams, and so we do need to look after ourselves. So it's been quite strict in terms of your working hours, and you know, when you look at your emails, because we're so connected these days, aren't we? And you could be emailing from sort of realize you're doing it. So it's very strict about your working hours. Being strict about, you know, I get invites to go to various events. I could be out for, I said yes to everything. So you can't say yes to everything. There's certain things that I need to go to and I have to be at, but you definitely can't say yes to everything. So it's about how you're looking after yourself. You know, I go to the gym 3 times a week, etc., to get proper exercise, look after yourself in terms of your own mental health through meditation and those sorts of things. So it's important about that. We talk about mental health, and, you know, mental health of the team, not just our students, because that's impactful as well. So it's really about having that openness, making sure that we are looking after each other. And if one of us seems to, oh, you know, why are you still here working? What's going on? You know, so, oh, well, I've got this and this to do. In a leadership role, that your to-do list is never going to be empty. And I think that's a big transition for some people that move into leadership. Is they think, well, I've got a list, I've got to get it. No, because as soon as you complete it, it's going to be something anyway. So you've got to be comfortable with having a to-do list that's never going to end, and that takes some getting used to.
And how did you do that transition yourself, going from perhaps more managerial to more sort of leadership type roles, where is a never-ending sort of to-do list, and how do you sort of prioritize, and how do you recognize that I'm not going to go to that evening event, but I'm going to go to that one? What sort of things, what sort of decision making is going on in your sort of thought processes?
Yeah, I think, I mean, as you mentioned earlier, you know, I've got 28 years in FE. I started as a student teacher in 1996 at what is now Brighton Met, was City College Brighton Hove at the time, and I've worked my way up through being a teacher, and then a vice principal and deputy principal, etc. And I think as you grow through that leadership journey, there are certain things you can train for, and there are certain things that you can only experience. And I have a saying that says you can't learn experience, you can only experience experience. And you know, a classic example is if you go to a situation which is brand new to you. So, you know, I think for example, a disciplinary or something like that. You don't know how you're going to react emotionally or physically until you've done it. Once you've done it, your body knows how to come. The next time it's easier, the next time it's easier, the next time it's easier. And a lot of managers, leaders don't realize that actually experience counts for an enormous amount, not just because of, oh, look on my CV, I've got 5 years in this. That how you as a human being process your brain, your physicality, your body learns through that experience. Obviously, there's lots of things you can train for. So when I recruit, I recruit for attitude, because you can train for skills, let alone what they've got in terms of skills. So that's really important. So I've learned, I've made loads and loads of mistakes during my leadership career, and completely overworked myself and completely burned myself out and all those sorts of things. But you learn from that, and you learn from that because it's you know, really important that you learn as much from failure as you do from success. It's cliche, but it is so true. It's okay to fail. It's okay to get it wrong, and we talk about that a lot. And actually, we talk about a lot that I'm not expected to have all the answers. That's why I've got a team. And I know that I'm not a finisher, so I can go, right, it's a great idea. Let's do this, this, and this. And everybody goes, oh, it's a great idea. What are we going to do now? I don't know. You guys go away and do it. I don't know how to do it. I'm not a finisher. So it's about building your team around you, I guess, that complements your own skill set and complements each other's skill sets, etc. I think I'm wandering off from what your original question was, Julian, but sorry, I'm rambling.
No. It's good ramblings, and just that whole sort of team dynamic and of your sort of close sort of leadership team. How do you work that? You talked about how you're not a finisher, and so have you sort of selected, developed a team that then works in a collective way that is obviously sort of creates that sort of performance as an organisation?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think it's. My team's been pretty stable actually over the last 10, 15 years, and really lucky in that sense because, when you're in a very successful organisation like Chichester College Group, you might lose people. Principals that have just retired or retiring this year. So in terms of that recruitment, we'll be looking at exactly how and what we want in terms of a skill set. We do a couple of leadership assessments, psychoanalysis assessments on recruitment as part of that process to see, do they fit? Are they a nice fit? We've got enough of those. We've got enough of those. We've got enough of those to make sure that they're a good fit. And I recently, 2 years ago, recruited a new chief commercial officer. My priority was a good team fit. Actually, it wasn't about how much money can you make me commercially and what experience have you got commercially. It was really about that team fit because that was really important to me. And actually, I got both, so I was really lucky. I think you have to really think about the team makeup that you've got around you. It's not just about, let's just recruit a load of people. It's really about understanding, and I'm sure you've done it, the whole colour analysis, if you're a green and how do you work with a red, and if you're a yellow, how do you work with a blue, and all those things. We spend time looking at those things and considering those things because it is business. On the front of our strategic plan, it says we're a people business delivered by people to people. And therefore you have to understand people, and investing some time and some consideration how you understand people and how different teams work and how they work together is really, really important.
Yeah, I think that it is important, and I think the colours is really good. It's a good way of sort of I do DISC, which is very similar anyway, and so sort of how that interacts and how we work together each other and how we communicate is really important. And as you say, knowing each other's sort of capabilities or preferences, like you're not a finisher, you've said that, and knowing that as a team can be where you can all fill in the gaps of each other, which is really important. You said about you learning from mistakes. I don't know if you want to share a mistake or a learning that you've had as a CEO of Chichester College, if you're open to that. I mean, you might not want to be, that you could say, this is what mistake I had, this is what I learned, and that's what I built in this and going forward in terms of new practices. I don't even want to share that at all.
Yeah. No.
It's gone. What happened there?
Hello.
We lost you there for a moment. Not sure what happened.
No, I haven't there. Sorry, it is.
That's all right.
Yeah, they're back. Yeah. Okay, so I was talking about an example of a failure. So when I first arrived at Chichester College Group, I was looking at our 14-16 provision, which was really performing well at Chichester, really performing very well at our Brinsby campus. We only had 2 colleges when I first joined. So I thought, the immediate solution is take the manager from the Chichester one that's doing it really well and put them at Brinsby, and it'll work really, really well. And it didn't work really, really well. And I learned very early on, it's not just about the right person, it's about the right job. We had another member of staff who was just really doing a bad job in her particular area. And then I was thinking, maybe she'll need to go. But then she moved to absolutely brilliant. So it's right person, right job. And that's really important, I think, learning that. And I completely messed up this move, moving this manager between the two provisions, because actually what happened was Chichester all a bit mad and a bit wrong. But you learn from that. You learn that actually, okay, it isn't not necessarily always the right person. It's the right job, right focus, and right time sometimes for those people to do that. So yeah, that's just one example. For my much earlier career, the young boy and get promoted, etc., and I was working late for months, thinking this is the way I was going to get a promotion. And I completely burnt myself out. Started not being very productive at all. And now I say to my staff, for me, it's all about measuring outputs, not inputs. So whether you're in the building from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. or you're in the building from 9 a.m. till 10 a.m. and then go home, as long as you're delivering outstanding teaching and learning, outstanding outcomes and outstanding people development, meeting all your targets within budget, I don't care how many hours you work. I don't care where you are or what hours you work. It's about outputs, not inputs. And there are too many leaders that go, oh, we're 4 hours today. Have you done your 5 hours? Well, I have done my 5 hours, but look at these outcomes. Look or have recruited or whatever it might be, and that's really, I think, for leaders to recognise that it's not about where your staff are or how many hours they're doing. It's about the impact they're having in terms of their outcomes. And I learned that at my peril early on. And my team now know I'm not a morning person, Julian, at all. So they now know that I won't rock up in the office till 10 to 9. Some of them are here at 7:30. They love it at 7:30. It's nice and quiet. That's fine. I'm still in bed at 7:30. Working later, I won't go to bed till 1 o'clock, so I might work in the evening. So, it's not about counting the hours or where you are if you're in at 7:30, because we're all different, aren't we? Some of us prefer the other end of the day, and some of us prefer mornings. I'm not a morning person.
Well, I'm glad you got you on the morning side of this anyway. I feel quite privileged that you're here at 9 o'clock. So yeah, and I think it's important to recognise that we all have different ways of working and having that flexibility, and it is about what you're delivering as opposed to how many hours you're doing. It's irrelevant because you could be doing a lot of hours but inefficiently doing stuff and doing the wrong stuff sometimes. That's important. Just as a final question, really, is to look at the whole aspects of sort of kindness and almost like what role that plays. It's one of your superpowers you talk about. And so how does that play out in your leadership philosophy, and how do you sort of implement that practically? How does that work out pragmatically within your organization?
So I introduced the concept of kindness as a superpower about 4 years ago, and I just started talking about it to staff and my key sort of management delivery, my CEO things, etc. And we started to talk about how we might embed this as a core value. It is now a core value. Kindness and compassion is one of our core values. And the reason I did that is because kindness is a superpower, because you don't know whether someone's having a really good day or a really bad day. And if you're just a single act of simple kindness can really change their day, whether that's a thank you, whether that's a hug, whether that's a well done, or whether it's just, are you okay? Can I help you out? Or whatever. It's really important to us that our behavior underneath those core values is around kindness. Now, people will say to me, well, how can you be kind if you've got to discipline a student or discipline a member of staff? Well, you can, because you can do that in a kind and compassionate way. And, I've had to fire staff in the past, obviously, but you can still do that in a kind and compassionate way. It's about your behaviour. It's about your understanding of that. So it comes back to emotional intelligence, doesn't it, in terms of your impact on other people. We have random act of kindness vouchers you can buy from our college shop, and then you can just go and stick it on someone's desk, and it's worth £3.50 to go and get a coffee or breakfast or whatever it might be, just to say thanks for just being great. And those little simple acts can make such a difference. And there's one of the admin assistants at one of the other colleges always looks after me and makes me a green tea every time I go there. And so I gave her one, and she was so blown away. And I was like, little thing. And the other end of the scale is my wife was driving to work and she went over one of the bridges on the A27. There was a guy stood on the bridge looking really, like he was going to jump. She pulled over. Lots of cars went past. She pulled over. She went over to him and said, "You okay?" He's like, no, I hate my life, etc., etc. And stayed with him until the ambulance arrived. and saved his life. That's the other extreme.
Wow.
I wouldn't say to everybody just go up to random people, because that's, it could have been dangerous. But it is about that little gesture of kindness. And in a world where there doesn't seem to be much kindness at the moment, if we could all be a little bit more kind to each other, then the world would be a much better place.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic superpower to focus on and to have that within your organization, and and obviously yourself and your wife are obviously modeling that, which I think is one of the most powerful ways of actually getting something in a culture is modeling it and doing it yourself. And obviously you put some little ways of doing that in the organization as well. I think that's amazing, and I think that's quite powerful to have those, say, that little simple little a voucher, small thing, but actually can be a nice thing, somebody's actually thinking about you. That's the thing, isn't it? And it makes people feel valued and sort of seen. I guess that's obviously these good things, isn't it?
I think what amazed me, Julian, is once I started talking about it a lot, then I'd start hearing it back. So I'd start hearing it back in student nominations for staff, or I'd start hearing it back for staff nominations for staff. So, this member of staff is so kind, she does this, this, and this. And it's really interesting from a leader how you can start to articulate a word, a theory, a value, and how that permeates through the organization, and how quickly that happens. Actually, it's really interesting. And ultimately it comes back to happiness, because true happiness only comes from helping others. And there's loads of social research that defines that. It's not just me saying that. There's loads of social research out there that says, actually true happiness comes from helping other people, making a difference to other people. And that goes back to the very start of this program, where I said the reason I get out of bed every morning is because I want to make a difference to people.
Yeah, no, there is. And I think the whole thing on kindness, as much as you bless somebody else, actually you get something back for it, bizarrely.
Yeah.
It's there's lots of stuff, research on that. There is. That's fantastic. It's been really insightful on your sort of insights on terms of sort of CEO sort of journey and what you're doing with the sort of Chichester College Group. If people want to connect with you, get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, so they can find me on LinkedIn, and people can email me, andrew.green@chichester.ac.uk. Love to hear your thoughts, or post on LinkedIn, or message me on LinkedIn. Be happy to chat. It'd be great. Thank you, Julian.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time this morning, Andrew. I know you're really busy and already got lots of meetings planned after this, but so I do appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on.
It's been amazing.